Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Facebook Live, coming at you from my lovely backyard. My little tropical paradise is what I call it. If you don't know who I am Brianna, and I help teen girls and young women end the vicious cycle of their mental health challenges so that they can rise up and truly love themselves from the inside out. And I just got off of an amazing private session with one of my clients, and I wanted just to share a little bit about what we were talking about, because it can really be helpful for some of you moms who have daughters who are falling into this whole comparison game, which it can just wreck their self-esteem and confidence and make them feel so crappy about themselves, and they don't know how to get out of it. And so, I was coaching this 16, I think she's 16 years old. She's adorable. Like, I love her so, so much because she's asking all the good questions, and we're getting in really deep, and she's so smart, and she can really just take it in and absorb it. And I know she's going to really, really practice this and embody this work so much. So anyways, I digress. Okay, comparison. How many of your daughters are falling into this comparison game? Now, it can be comparison with it can be comparison with their grades, right? It can be comparison. This particular girl that I was coaching goes to a very competitive high school. And so grades, it's like a big deal for these kids, right? These students, it's a big deal. They want to be the best of the best. And it's like, even if they got a good grade, but it's not the top grade, it's very easy where they get into this, degrading themselves and putting themselves down and comparing themselves. Well, why didn't I get a grade like so-and-so? Why didn't I do better like so-and-so did? And it's not really taking into account, but did you try? Did you do your best, right? And really giving themselves compassion and love for trying and doing their best. What if it's an A-? What if it's a B+? What if it's a B? And it's like, oh my God, it's not the best grade ever. And what they do to themselves, because there's always going to be people that are going to get higher grades than them. I think this whole perfectionism thing really has got to go, because if your daughter is a perfectionist, it's like, that's not attainable. That's not an easy place to live your life, being this perfectionist where I got to do everything perfect. I got to do this perfect. I got to do that perfect. I got to do that perfect. And when you don't do something perfect, what happens? How do you treat yourself, right? So if your daughter is a perfectionist, okay, when she doesn't get the grade, how does she treat herself, right? When she doesn't get that friend group, how does she treat herself? When she doesn't get on the tennis team or the track team or the basketball, whatever it is, how does she treat herself when things don't go her way? This is so important, because girls who are high achievers, right? Lots of girls out there, they're on the honor roll, they're excelling, and they're very high up there. They may be high achievers. They may be on the honor roll. They may be getting all of the good grades, but the pressure that they put on themselves to be this way can feel a lot. There's been so many girls who are very, very high achievers, and they're in the throes of depression or anxiety or unhealthy coping mechanisms, because the pressure is just too much. And this perfectionism thing that they got going on, they just can't keep that going anymore, right? So if your daughter is if she's someone that compares herself to others, whether that's grades, whether that's appearance, whether that, it could be anything and everything. What's really important is for your daughter to recognize that part of her that's comparing herself to others, that's not her. Right? One of the things that I teach my clients is the ego versus the heart. The ego is this voice in our head that likes to tear us down, that likes to make us feel so crappy about ourselves. That's not us. That's a false you, right? That's called ego. Now there's this other place where our thoughts come from, which is the heart. Now the heart is unconditional love. The heart is compassion. The heart is, the heart speaks and sounds way differently than what the ego might say to us, right? So there's a practice, there's a dance of when we're in our ego, when we're in our criticism, when we're in that negative thinking, how do we come back into the heart? How do we come back into the heart? And this is what I teach my clients. It's kind of like a dance, kind of like dancing right now, right? It's getting out of the head and coming back into the heart. Because here is unconditional love. This is where your daughter can live, right? Anyways, I digress. Getting back to the comparison. So, your daughter is comparing herself. What does she do? So, what I was teaching my client that I'm going to share with all of you is this idea of attachment versus non-attachment to our thoughts. We attach ourselves to our thoughts, but guess what? We can detach ourselves to our thoughts. It's a really fantastic, phenomenal thing, right? What do I mean by all of this? Well, if your daughter is going to attach herself to every single thought that she has, this is what is going to create so much stress and overwhelm and anxiety and suffering in her life, because not all her thoughts are pleasant. Not all her thoughts are self-affirming. Not all of her thoughts are empowering her, right? So when she attaches herself to every thought that makes her feel like crap, that's going to create more suffering in her life, thus creating more mental health issues, right? So, but there's another thing that she can do, which is this whole thing of detaching. It's like, I'm going to step away from, and she can actually do this like as a little tool to help her remember this, right? It's like, okay, you can either attach yourself to the thought or detach yourself to the thought. Now, the detaching ourselves to our thought is knowing this, that we are not our thoughts. I can think a thought. It doesn't have to be my truth. It doesn't have to be true, right? So this is also going into this idea of non-attachment to our thoughts, right? There's a lot of spiritual thinkers out there and authors and coaches and everyone, they talk about this, right? The non-attachment to our thoughts, right? And so Michael Singer has a beautiful book called I think it's called The Untethered Soul. Talks all about this. Non-attachment to our thoughts, right? So your daughter can have a thought, goes into that comparison, goes into making herself feel horrible about herself. And instead of attaching herself to that thought, instead of believing the thought, guess what she can do? She can practice this whole non-attachment. I'm going to step away from this. This is not my truth. I don't have to believe it. Here's the deal. Your daughter steps into her power when she starts questioning her thoughts. She starts observing how she speaks to herself. She starts being this presence and awareness of how she is showing up and what she is thinking. Because in life, we often think that girls who are struggling, it's from their circumstances, and it's actually not. Girls who are struggling more because of what they are saying about their circumstances, the meaning that they are giving to their circumstances, the self-talk that's coming in about their circumstances. That is actually creating their suffering, right? And so we really got to get clear on what can we do about this. What can your daughter do about what is going on between these two ears, right? This is her self-talk. This is her dialogue. This is her negative thinking or positive thinking. Everything that's going on in here is creating her suffering or creating her happiness and her joy, right? Mental health challenges don't just come from the circumstances. If someone is bullying your daughter, first of all, I'm sorry if that happens to anyone because it's happening too frequently and too much and it totally sucks. But it's not necessarily the bullying that may be getting to your daughter. It's what your daughter is making that mean about herself, right? Because girls will, carry this story, this narrative of, I'm unworthy, I'm undeserving, I'm worthless, I'm a piece of crap, I'm a waste of space, when bad things happen to them in their lives and they don't know how to create a new narrative because they've never learned how. This is the work. This is the work of empowerment, of self-love and healing, and it will change your daughter's life. So The next time that your daughter goes into comparison, and she may actually not share this with you. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But the next time you go into comparison too, mom, dad, whoever may be watching this, like, what are you doing with that, right? We have more power over our lives than we give ourselves credit for. We have more power over our thoughts than we actually give ourselves credit for, but we have to learn how to do something different, right? So the non-attachment to our thoughts is very, very powerful. We don't have to believe everything that we think. And this goes for your daughter as well. She doesn't have to believe every little thing that she thinks. If she can practice this non-attachment, I don't have to believe this about myself. I don't have to believe this about myself. This is not my truth. This is not my truth. This is not my truth. Here is my truth. So many of these girls are struggling with their self-esteem, their confidence. They feel horrible about themselves and they don't know how to change that. They've got to get control of this. People like to call it, when girls are suffering with their mental health, and a lot of people are calling it they're mentally ill. They got a chemical imbalance and all of this stuff. You know what is needed? It's not the labeling and the diagnosis. What these girls need more than anything is to learn how to work this. This mind, also the ego that's in there, like this has got to be worked out. This is a practice. It's a skill. Your daughter can get really good at it. And this can create her happiness and her joy and her self-empowerment and self-love. It starts here. If you resonate with what I'm saying, check out my masterclass. The link will be somewhere below. Healing the New Medicine for Anxiety and Depression. Also, if you've watched this far, let me know you're here live if you're watching live, replay if you're watching replay. I love you all so much. See you later.